Hello FPL managers and welcome back for another video. My name's Jack and today we're going to go over the knee-jerk reaction for Game Week 10. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you do enjoy the video. Of course, as we now integrated face cam into the channel. Also click that notification bell so you guys don't miss any future uploads. And with that being said, let's jump into the video. So in today's video, we're going to have a look at the most transferred in and transferred out players so far this week and give you guys a recommendation as to whether or not you should go with the crowd and bring these popular players that are being transferred in heavily into your squads, or also go with the crowd and move out the players that have been also heavily transferred out. Looking at the three most transferred in players this week, beginning with Trossard, he got himself a hat-trick for Brighton, scoring 20 points. And of course, that means he would be the most transferred in player so far this week. For me, I am still a little bit hesitant on him. He has actually produced 4 goals and 1 assist in his last 2 games for Brighton, but they've still got some tricky fixtures coming up. I believe they've still yet to face Tottenham, Manchester City and Chelsea as 3 out of their next 5 opponents, so definitely some tricky fixtures in there. They do have a good run against Nottingham Forest though, but for me, probably not the best option given their upcoming fixtures, so I can see the temptation to jump on him after a strong performance this week, but I still think there's better mid-price midfielder picks right now, which we will discuss later in the video, that have better fixtures than him and have upheld similar form across a longer period of time, because Trossard, yes, he's been good the last couple of weeks, but before that he wasn't providing a lot for Brighton. Kieran Trippier was the second most popular transfer in, and for me he's a great option to transfer into the squads. Another 7 points in game week 9. He's pretty much getting returns every game now. He's a very consistent performer. He now is one of the highest scoring defenders so far this season, and Newcastle still has some very good fixtures coming up from now until game week 16. And I think as far as fixtures go and current form for Trippier, he's pretty much a set and forget option up until game week 16, where you do get that second wildcard made available to you, as at £5.4 million, such a consistent performer, such great value to have in the team. And especially considering that some of the other defences aren't quite firing right now, such as the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea. I think Trippier is just a solid, consistent performer to have in that squad, especially if you don't have Reece James or Trent right now. I think Trippier is a great option to have in the team. Then looking at the third most popular transfer in, I was a bit confused about this one. It is William Saliba. I do think a lot of people have transferred him into the squads just because they've seen him have essentially one of the most points amongst all defenders so far this season. They're kind of basing it off that. For me, not a great transfer in. Arsenal do have that blank in game week 12 and they don't have the easiest fixtures from now until then, and even up until game week 16 I think there's better defensive options than him right now. Yes, he's performed well so far this season, he's got a lot of FPL points, but Arsenal's defence hasn't actually been the strongest in recent game weeks. And I think at £4.9 million roughly for Saliba right now, probably a bit too expensive for a centre-back that, yes, he's got some attacking returns so far, but in general doesn't offer a massive amount of attacking threat. I think there are better picks that do have better fixture schedules up until game week 16. We will also discuss some of those options in upcoming videos as well, but for me, Saliba probably not the best transfer in right now, as there are more priority transfers and better options to bring into the squads for the upcoming game weeks. Moving on to the most transferred out players now, Trent Alexander-Arnold, a very frustrating performance from him once again, just the 0 points in game week 9, as Liverpool's defensive woes continue, conceding 3 goals at home to Brighton. Trent couldn't provide any attacking returns in this one, and I think he picked up a yellow card as well, taking that extra minus point down to 0, which is a bit disappointing for his owners. A lot of people did get him on the wild card, so definitely a very frustrating one. But for me, despite the poor points output, yes, he's got Arsenal and Manchester City as his next 2, but then in game weeks 12 through 16, Liverpool do have some good fixtures where it could be beneficial to jump back on their players before you get that second wildcard available, as they could perform quite well over that 4 or 5 week span. So for me, if you've currently got Trent in the squad heading into game week 10, I don't think transferring him out now is the right move. Yes, the next 2 fixtures are difficult, but you're pretty much booking in that transfer in game week 12, getting him back into the squads, as so many FPL managers will flock to get him in. As yes, he's not been the greatest so far this season, but we've seen what he can produce in the past, and with the good fixtures coming up, he can hopefully turn his form around for Liverpool, and hopefully Liverpool in general can turn their form around this season to provide a bit more joy at the back for his owners. Alexander Mitrovic as well, another frustrating performance, 0 points in game week 9. A very popular player to be transferred into the squads in the last 2 or 3 game weeks. Hasn't provided a massive amount in this time. He's actually blanked in his last 2 games of Fulham now. He did come off early with an injury. There hasn't been too much news on the length of the injury released at the time of recording, so for me, I think right now it's worthwhile holding on to him until you see the extent of his injury before you get him out of the squads. This is always a smart decision when any of your players gets injured in the squad. Just assess the length of the injury and the severity of the injury before you move out the player, because if it turns out Mitrovic is all good for game weeks 10, then you're probably going to want him in the squad, because for his price, he's such a high point scorer. He's been very, very good value so far this season. And Fulham do have some very good fixtures coming up from now until game week 16. So yes, despite once again the frustration in the last 2 game weeks, a very strong hold option. I wouldn't really transfer him out yet until you got more news about his injury, because if he is playing, he's going to prove to be a nice value pick on the forward line. And moving on, it was actually very surprising to see Mo Salah be the 3rd most transferred up player this week, despite him actually contributing an assist for Liverpool, getting himself 5 points in game week 9. For me, Salah is a very strong hold option right now. Once again, as we touched on with Trent, Arsenal and Manchester City as the next 2 fixtures. They are the easiest fixtures, but game weeks 12 through 16, very, very promising for Liverpool. And if you're a Salah owner coming into game week 10, it's not the right time to sell him now. I think I'd hold him through his tough next 2 fixtures, because once again, similar to Trent, a lot of managers are going to look to bring in those Liverpool players around game weeks 12 and 13, and by having Salah in the squad now at £12.8 million, his price should probably rise up to 12.9 or even 13 once lots of managers do look to get him into the squad. And I think it's a bit harsh getting him out after 5 points in game week 9. As yet, it's not the mega haul that we're always hoping for from Salah. It's still a decent attacking contribution, and in a game week 9 set of fixtures so far, when there's not been too many highly owned players that have performed very well, Salah for me has to remain in the squad at this current point in time. So with these most popular transfers in mind, let's have a look at our Game Week 10 transfer watch list. These roughly 8 players that we will consider bringing into the squads due to some good upcoming fixtures or great underlying stats so far this season. The first one here is actually Mo Salah, which is of course in a bit of controversy compared to what managers have been doing with him this week, as he is the 3rd most transferred up player. But we recommend him as the one on the horizon of a potential transfer into the squad. For the reasons that we explained before, Liverpool have an excellent fixture turn, and that is hard by his predicted points in the next 6 game weeks. It actually is one of the highest amongst all players in the league in the next 6 weeks, and it is the highest figure amongst all players on the watch list here with 37.7. He's also expected to do pretty well in game weeks 10, which is good to see for Liverpool. For me, it's not the easiest fixture against Arsenal away, but once again, he's getting plenty of chances. He's attempting a lot of assists for Liverpool as well. Contributed another assist in game week 9. So for me, he's a nice option to have, especially at £12.8 million, as he has dropped in price once again from 12.9. So if you are looking to get him into the squad, I think in the next 2 or 3 game weeks could be the time to do so. He got himself a goal in his most recent Champions League game. He got himself an assist in his most recent Premier League game. So he is starting to find some form for Liverpool. Otherwise, Trippier at 5.4 million. We did hype him up a lot on the KNEEJERK page. He's a great defensive option to have in the side. £5.4 million, such great value for him. Newcastle still have some great fixtures coming up. Brentford at home in game week 10. Another very, very good fixture. Brentford did fail to score away to Bournemouth in game week 9, so hopefully the trend of Brentford not scoring away can continue this game for Kieran Trippier. A lot of managers do already have him. His ownership's nearly crept up to 50%. If you don't currently have him in the squad, I would really recommend having him in there, at least up until game week 16 when you get that second wild card. Otherwise, Rodrigo, a differential pick on this list. Definitely an exciting one, and one more that hasn't performed so well in the most recent game weeks due to an injury, but one that I'm excited to see what he can produce over the coming game weeks for Leeds, as they do have some very good fixtures coming up. We know what sort of numbers Rodrigo put out before he got his injury. It was absolutely immense, one of the highest scoring players in FPL before he was injured. So if he can recapture some of that form when he does return to the Leeds side, hopefully this game week in game week 9, I'm really excited to see what he can do in game weeks 10 and onwards, all up until game week 16. As Leeds do have some very good fixtures, especially from an attacking standpoint. His predicted points aren't the best in the next 6 game weeks, but I think there's a bit of uncertainty there surrounding his injury, but one to watch out for in the short term at least. Leandro Trossard has to be on the watch list after getting a hat-trick. Personally, he's not the best transfer in, but of course you always got to keep the eye on the player that is performing well. £6.6 million. It is a decent price for him, to be fair. A solid mid-price or cheaper price midfielder option. The fixtures aren't the best, and that is why he doesn't have the greatest predicted points in the next 6 game weeks. But maybe I can see a couple of managers looking to bring him in after a very strong performance last game week. Personally, I would stick clear, but one to watch out for. 4 goals and 1 assist in his last 2 matches, as we touched on. So if he can keep up this form, we've seen players score well through tough fixtures such as Alexander Mitrovic, so we'll have to see if Trossard can do the same. Ivan Toney, despite blanking in game week 9, did actually put up some very good underlying stats. He did have the 6th highest XG so far this game week amongst all players. It was sitting at around 0.76, and he actually took more shots than any other player so far this game week, which was a figure of 6, I believe, for them. So with some decent fixtures coming up for Brentford from now until game week 16 as well. Obviously, Isak picked up the injury. We'll have to see about the extent of the Mitrovic injury. So maybe Toney could present himself as a nice forward option at around £7 million right now. Similar price to Alexander Mitrovic, as he's risen in price quite a lot. So we'll have to see how he can perform. Fantasy Football Fix do actually expect him to perform quite well. Over the next 6 game weeks, he's expected to score 27.5 points, so definitely another exciting prospect to have in the squads. Wilfried Zaha coming in at the same price, a nice midfielder option as well. A tougher fixture last week against Chelsea at home. He did have a shot on target, which was well saved by Kepa Arrizabalaga, but with Crystal Palace's very strong fixtures from now until game week 16, arguably the best fixtures out of any team before the second wildcard becomes available. Leeds at home in game week 10 as well. I think he's an exciting pick to have in the squad. He still put up very good underlying stats. He did perform quite well early on in the season, but once again, if he can recapture that form in game week 10 and onwards, he could perform quite well, and that is why he does have a very high expected FPL points of 27 by Fantasy Football Fix. Maddison, player in a similar boat to Wilfried Zaha as that mid-price midfielder. He's a bit more expensive at £8 million, but once again, Leicester probably have the best or second best fixtures from now until game week 16. Between them and Crystal Palace, I would say, are the best two. He's got Bournemouth away next game week, a very promising fixture from an attacking standpoint. He is still yet to play in game week 9 against Nottingham Forest at the time of recording, but once again, a player with a very high predicted FPL points in the next 6 game weeks with 27.6, so that's why Maddison has to feature on the watch list. He's been very impressive so far this season. He's produced 3 goals and 1 assist already, and around 6 games for Leicester, so a very decent output for a player of his price. And then Harry Kane does round out the watch list, as his ownership is still sitting fairly low at around 20% right now, but he got himself yet another goal in game week 9. Yes, it was a penalty goal, but that just adds to the appeal of Harry Kane, as he is on penalties for Tottenham. The fixtures aren't the best, but if you are looking for a differential premium, maybe Harry Kane could be the option for you. £11.4 million, it could be a good differential if you're looking for that other premium option instead of Mo Salah. If you're really not sold on him, maybe you want to go double premiums up top with Haaland and Kane, as Kane's been in absolutely immense form so far this season. He did have the 5th highest expected goals figure out of any player so far this game week, so very strong underlying stats. He does have one of the highest predicted FPL points so far out of any player across the first 9 game weeks, and he's expected to perform very well in the next 6 game weeks as well, with a 30.1 expected FPL points, which is the second best figure amongst all players on this watch list, only behind Mo Salah. Thanks for watching today's knee-jerk reaction video for Game Week 10. If you found it useful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to show your support for the channel. Also, with the new face cam, leave a comment what you're thinking about it. Do you prefer it to the old style of videos? And also look out for some more videos coming out. We've got buy, hold, sell, transfer targets, team selection coming out for Game Week 10. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.